Welcome back at 7:24. A hard hit in a high school football game, whiplash from a car accident, a bomb exploding on a battlefield. These can all lead to traumatic brain injuries. People with TBIs, as they're called, have been misdiagnosed or treated with medications that aggravate their condition for years. But now there's a new holistic way to treat traumatic brain injuries. Joining us this morning to talk about it is Dr. Robert Reynolds from the Connecticut Educational Services. Thanks. And your premise is that often these injuries are misdiagnosed.
Yes, because they often present as depression or fatigue or low energy, confusion. Sometimes it's even misdiagnosed as attention deficit disorder, when in fact a person has suffered a brain injury. Sometimes they don't even know it themselves, but they know that their experience of life is different.
Okay, so you're experiencing these conditions that seem to mimic depression. So the natural response for many practitioners is to prescribe an antidepressant, right?
That's right. That's right.
And what happens?
Well, sometimes it helps, but oftentimes it leaves the person even more confused. They're struggling. They're already trying to stay focused and stay present, and then the medication can sometimes make those symptoms worse.
And there's some real practical fallout that can happen when this happens. When you're misdiagnosed, mistreated, things start to maybe fall apart in your personal life, right?
Well, they do, because you're really having a hard time conducting your life. The parts of the brain that typically help us to do that are the ones most affected. The problem-solving areas, the focus, the attentional areas, those are the areas that are almost always involved. And if those start to fail, then you're going to have a hard time conducting your life. It starts to play itself out on the job, in the job scene, also at home. And unless a person gets help, you can see their lives start to slowly unravel.
Okay, so we set the medication aside. What do you prescribe?
Well, when you take a look at what happens to the brain in a typical brain injury, the electrical activity that the brain produces is frequently disturbed. If we can return those patterns of electrical activity to a more normal, sort of predictable pattern, then you'll start to see these functions come back online. And we do that using computer technologies in which we actually teach the person how to restore those brain patterns.
And you're talking about mostly executive function, right? The frontal lobe?
That's right, the frontal lobes. Those are the parts that help us to conduct our lives, and frequently that's where the energy of the electrical activity has been displaced.
And how does this work without medicine?
Well, we actually first take a brain map, which is a picture of the electrical activity, to see what's gone on and where it's disturbed, and then we put electrodes on those areas while the person is watching, let's say, a video game. And when the electrodes detect that the brain is producing the correct patterns underneath it, the games will take off. But as soon as the electrode picks up that the brain is offline again, the electrical activity is not proper, it'll slow down the game, sometimes even stop the game, until the person once again produces the correct pattern. And once they've learned to do this over time, it's like learning to ride a bike. You never forget it.
So this is a form...
It's the same principles at work.
I've seen some stories about treating attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in this way or maybe a similar way. Is this what this is based upon, or are they doing the same thing with that?
Yes, in fact, I was on your station last year. I was going to talk to you about that.
Well, I must have seen the story on Channel 8. Imagine that. I couldn't remember where I've seen it, but it's the same concept, right?
It's the same concept. The strategies are slightly different, but it's the same sort of process.
And I would imagine that there's all sorts of interest in this in terms, especially military. I mean, you know, there's so many soldiers that suffer traumatic brain injuries on the battlefield.
It's true, and I'm sad to say that that's the case, but the good news about that is that it's heightened our awareness of traumatic brain injury in other populations. Athletes in high school and colleges, for instance, are getting a lot more attention, and I think a lot of it is because of what's come back from the battlefield. So the downside is we have more people coming back from the war who are injured in this way, but it's making us better understand the complexities involved and the kinds of treatments that might be available that never got much airtime or never got much press.
Well, this is exciting news. And if you want to learn more, if you're at home right now and you want to find out more about this, you can go to our website, WTNH.com. We'll provide you with a link to much more information. In the meantime, we want to thank Dr. Robert Reynolds for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Ted. It's been a pleasure.